In 2015, Nvidia was worth $150 billion. Today, it's the first company to hit $4 trillion. That's a 2,600% gain in just 9 years. But here's what nobody's talking about. This wasn't luck. It was a 30-year chess move that started in a garage before anyone knew what artificial intelligence would become. So how did a graphics card company become more valuable than the entire stock market of most countries? In 1993, Jensen Huang and two co-founders started Nvidia with a single mission: make video games look better. Graphics processing units, GPUs. That's all they built. They had no idea they were creating the foundation of the AI revolution. For 20 years, Nvidia dominated gaming. Brilliant business, reliable revenue. But it was a ceiling. Everyone assumed gaming was their end game. Then, in 2012, something unexpected happened. A researcher at the University of Toronto used Nvidia GPUs to win an AI competition called ImageNet. The neural network trained on Nvidia hardware crushed the competition by a historic margin. The AI accuracy jumped from 74% to 84% in a single year. That moment changed everything. The physics that made GPUs perfect for rendering video game graphics, parallel processing, massive computational throughput, specialized memory architecture, turned out to be exactly what deep learning needed. Nvidia didn't chase the opportunity. They already owned it. By the time OpenAI launched ChatGPT in November 2022, Nvidia had a 10-year head start on the competition. AMD was still catching up. Intel missed it entirely. When everyone woke up to the AI boom, there was only one company that could supply the chips at scale. That's a monopoly. An accidental monopoly, but a monopoly nonetheless. Revenue exploded. In fiscal 2024, Nvidia generated $60 billion in revenue. But here's the kicker. Their data center business, the AI chips, went from $7 billion to $47 billion in 3 years. The startup ecosystem now depends on Nvidia chips. OpenAI uses them. Google uses them. Meta uses them. Microsoft uses them. Every major AI startup needs Nvidia's H100 or H200 GPUs just to train a competitive model. Without them, your AI company is dead on arrival. That's not just a business model. That's an execution moat. An unfair advantage so deep that competitors can't catch up even when they try. Here's where it gets interesting for the money side. In 2020, Nvidia was valued at $500 billion. Smart investors saw the AI train coming, but even they massively underestimated. A $500 billion company that would hit $4 trillion isn't just growth. That's an 8x return from just 4 years ago. Most of Wall Street missed it because they underestimated 3 things. First, the depth of AI adoption. In 2020, AI felt like a lab experiment. Useful, but not mainstream. By 2024, every Fortune 500 company was frantically trying to integrate AI. Every startup needed GPU access. The demand wasn't linear. It was exponential. Second, the pricing power. Nvidia didn't just sell more chips. They sold them at premium prices. An H100 GPU costs $40,000. H200 is even more expensive. Customers paid because there was no alternative. With monopoly pricing and exponential demand, gross margins stayed above 75%. Third, the network effect of their ecosystem. Every AI engineer learned CUDA, Nvidia's programming language. Every AI startup built their infrastructure around Nvidia's platform. Switching costs became astronomical. Competitors had to match not just the hardware, but an entire ecosystem of software, libraries, and developer talent. So when you're an investor in 2020 looking at Nvidia, you're not just betting on a semiconductor company. You're betting that artificial intelligence will reshape the entire economy. You're betting on the picks and shovels play, and you're betting on the only shovel maker that matters. The stock split twice. Demand for shares literally exceeded supply. Institutional investors poured billions in, not because Nvidia was cheap at $500 billion, but because they understood they were early in a 30-year cycle. But the story gets deeper. Nvidia's path to $4 trillion wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time. It was about leverage. Leverage takes three forms: financial leverage, operational leverage, and strategic leverage. Financial leverage. Nvidia carries almost no debt. Their free cash flow is enormous. They can invest in R&D, acquire competitors, and return cash to shareholders without breaking a sweat. This gives them flexibility that stretched competitors don't have. Operational leverage. Once Nvidia built the CUDA ecosystem, each additional customer didn't require proportional costs. The software, the developer tools, the libraries, they're built once, sold infinitely. Their operating margin expanded from 30% to 55% in 4 years. Strategic leverage. This is the quiet one. Nvidia knew that if they became essential infrastructure for AI, they wouldn't be commoditized. They invested aggressively in proprietary technology, not generic chips. They built Nvidia CUDA, Nvidia QDNN, Nvidia TensorRT. Every layer of proprietary software locked customers in tighter. Compare this to competitors. AMD makes good chips, but they don't have the ecosystem. Intel was trapped in legacy x86 architecture. They couldn't pivot fast enough. Nvidia didn't just win the hardware race. They built an entire platform that became impossible to escape. That platform leverage is why their valuation exploded past other chip makers. When you control the infrastructure layer of a revolution, your valuation isn't tied to your current revenue. It's tied to the total addressable market of that revolution. AI's TAM is estimated at trillions of dollars across every industry. Nvidia doesn't capture it all, but they capture the most defensible part, the chips that power it. And defensibility is what drives valuation multiples. So why did Nvidia hit $4 trillion before anyone else? Because they made a GPU 30 years ago for video games and accidentally built the foundation for the biggest technology revolution since the internet. But the real reason they got so much richer than everyone else comes down to three compounding advantages. They had a monopoly on the only infrastructure layer that matters for AI. You can build an AI startup with open-source models. You cannot build one without Nvidia chips. They understood leverage. Instead of just selling faster, they built an ecosystem that made switching costs infinite. CUDA became as sticky as Windows. That ecosystem became their moat. Investors believed in the scale of the opportunity. A $4 trillion valuation assumes AI will reshape trillions of dollars of economic output. That's not crazy. That's probably conservative. The lesson here isn't Nvidia is a great stock. You don't need stock picks. The lesson is about spotting monopolies early. Nvidia didn't start as an AI company. They stumbled into it. But once they realized their technology was essential to AI, they doubled down. They invested in the ecosystem. They didn't compete on price, they competed on indispensability. That's the pattern. Find the infrastructure layer. Make it so good, so integrated,